The mid-2000s was a magical time. Many would say the golden era of MMOs. Well, maybe more the golden era of World of Warcraft and a bunch of crappy failed WoW killers, I should say. Well, maybe I'd take that back. Some of these games that you're looking at right now were decent, but there's one problem. World of Warcraft was better. The Lord of the Rings Online, the granddaddy of the fantasy genre, with the books being the direct inspiration of the world of Azeroth. Explore Middle-earth and interact with the iconic heroes you've come to know and love. There's just one problem though. World of Warcraft was better. The Age of Conan, a visceral and gory combat system set in the Conan universe with barbarians, nakedness, and 360-pixel decapitation montages edited to the tune of Linkin Park and Drowning Pool. But World of Warcraft is better. Warhammer Online, a fantasy MMO much like a game that you're familiar with, I'm sure, with orcs, elves, magic, and a huge storied world from a legendary franchise. But World of Warcraft was better. This was a line that would repeat time and time again. It was like a vampire that sucked every MMO of its player base. Most died slow and painful deaths, and others are barely running today with minimal servers. It's here where many would say that the game was in its prime. It's where people have the most nostalgic and fun memories, and much later, in 2018, I decided to share my own. Hey guys, what's up, MadSeason here, back with another video for you. Oh my god, just listen to that voice, so young and innocent, before life crushed his soul between its warm's voluptuous bosom. The year is 2007, and where we last left our heroes, the Nexramas grind had concluded. For several months, my guild and I grinded our skull against the brick wall known as 2006 Nexramas progression rating, and all we had to show for it were 6 bosses, a few more purples, a little less sanity, and soiled trousers. All you casual normies who rage over losing your world buffs over one wipe, try soiling your pants on a Nubricon because he kept resetting when he knocked the tank up in the air. Try being the number 2 guild in progression on your server 4 months after Nexramas release with just the Spiderwing cleared and AQ unfinished. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna be shaking my cane at everyone throughout this video.
Just shake your fist at him like this. Then he won't come back.
I don't want to hear it. As far as I'm concerned, I earned that right. If you don't like it, you can get out. Everyone was burnt out, myself included, and we all went into sleep mode until our next incursion into the world known as the Outland. This was still during the time of physical media and midnight launches and lines stretching around Best Buy.
My nipples are all hard and I'm gonna pwn noobs.
Parents camped out with their kids. Just look at this absolute legend of a dad. At this point, most kids were getting grounded with no internet for playing too much. And here's this guy, using his kid to keep his spot in line so he can be the first level 70 on his server. What a beast.
New levels, new weapons.
Flying mounts, new professions, new races.
I'm looking for World PvP because I hate Horde, so I kill Horde when I see Horde.
Being a sheltered nerd who played World of Warcraft all day, my brother went to go and pick me up a copy, and he said a 10 of 10 came to help him, and he tried to play it cool. Oh yeah, I need this Warcraft world game. I don't play it, of course, it's just my nerdy brother. Little did she know though, he was the server's second Hand of Ragnaros, and spawned the avatar you've come to know as MadSeasonShow. Shockingly, he went home that night like many others, a sexless virgin, but arose from the ashes to become more powerful than any of us could ever imagine. That's right, it's time to level to 70. It's time to install the sequel to what was then the greatest MMO of all time. Ten new levels, 7 new zones, new spells, talents, races, dungeons, raids, arena, and flying. It was everything people had hoped for from an expansion and more, and although we have the re-release now, you really had to play back then to fully understand the awe and wonder of it all. It was a special moment of time. Having started the original vanilla a few months after its launch, remember I was a holdout from Star Wars Galaxies, I never got to start off on the same footing as everyone else. But now, the slate was cleared. We didn't go through the Dark Portal with full Nexramas, Tier 3, best and sloughed out the yin-yang. 95% of the population were in Blackwing Lair gear or lower, the next 4% on Courage, and maybe the last 1% with Nexramus gear. And by the time we would reach level 70, everybody was in questing greens and blues, and relatively even with each other. Everyone was farming for their epic flying training because 5,000 gold was an insane amount, and no one knew about reputations, so dungeons were typically ran once or twice for the quests, and then it was back out into the world the way it was intended, and most players started getting into Karazhan or Heroics months after release, not weeks. YouTube was still in its infancy. You had some channels pop up that became legendary in their own right, but for the most part, the only thing that people min-maxed were their forum posts threatening to sue Blizzard for 2 days lost game time, because as is customary with any Blizzard launch, disconnects, lag, and maintenance were an ever-present part of that day one experience. Everything was new, fresh, and exciting. Before the MMO audience collectively bent the knee, threw their hands up, and paid for solutions to problems created by the people they were already paying, it certainly wasn't without its own controversy. Remember, World of Warcraft was the first MMO for so many people back then, and the idea of a new expansion where all old content, gear, and accomplishments were diminished or otherwise rendered meaningless was met with backlash. And now today, it happens every patch. What the hell happened? But regarding expansion releases, it seems silly because, well, that's what MMOs are, right? They're now expected, and starting fresh with everyone is more something that people look forward to. I think another contributing factor was that back then, maybe 1% of the guilds had actually cleared through the entirety of AQ40, let alone Nexramus. A large percentage of the population felt as if the rug was pulled out from under them, like eating a Hot Pocket, and then in the middle of it, someone takes it away and replaces it with pizza rolls. Pizza rolls are all well and good, but damn it, I haven't finished my Hot Pocket.
Ma'am? Yes, more Hot Pocket!
Of course, as time has shown, this will just be the natural evolution of MMOs and how they're structured, but anyone who played back then can back me up here. There was some controversy to be had with the transition. Many people threatened to quit, but many more would take their place, as it was during the Burning Crusade is when the game saw continuous growth throughout its entire lifespan. Not one single month of reported subscription losses, and the game was growing into this monster that was becoming harder and harder to control. It seemed like everyone was playing it. Everyone at school, co-workers, it was all over TV. It had taken the world by storm, and it was fun to get caught up in it. 8 million people were subscribed to the game by the time the Burning Crusade launched, and everyone was eager to see what awaited them in this unseen world. It's something that was so closely tied to the maturation of the internet and the information era that we'll never truly experience again. It sounds pretty good, right? Well, there's just one problem that eclipsed all of this, and that's the simple fact that the raids were now going from 40 men to 25 men. First and foremost, I wanted to talk about the Purge. This is something that many people are becoming familiar with today, but the transition between vanilla and the Burning Crusade, as great as the game was, proved to be too much for many guilds. Blizzard deemed that a roster size of 40 was a bit overboard. The potatoes that people were running just couldn't handle it. You ever notice how nearly every video from vanilla has like 10 FPS? There were lag issues with debuff slots, 40-player raids demanded giant rooms and restricted design. And as many people have learned, coordinating 40 people, especially in regards to attunements, compositions, and gearing, during an era before answers and spreadsheets weren't just a Google search away, created many issues that trimming down to 25 would solve. But these solutions were replaced with another very large and very real problem. 15 people aren't going to be raiding with you anymore. Or rather, maybe you won't be raiding with them. And if that wasn't enough, the first raid on everyone's list was of course the 10-man Karazhan. So from a 40-man raid you'd think, okay, no problem. That's 4 raid teams, right? But it never seemed to work out that way. Not enough of this role, too many of that role, not enough good players in raid X, this raid is getting ahead of that raid which is causing issues, these two people hate each other and refuse to raid with one another. Top raiding guilds, casual raiding guilds, and everything in between found themselves embroiled in the drama that came from cutting the fat, and my guild was no exception. The officers had retreated from the unwashed peasants they had spent the past 2 years with, and formed their 10-man A-team, leaving everyone else behind with little to no leadership that they had received and expected for 2 years in vanilla. and this would be the fate for many guilds. It's like being picked last for dodgeball, except now even the nerds don't want you. Before I get on the leadership too much here though, it is important to acknowledge that this is a lose-lose situation. There really isn't a smooth way to transition, and no matter what you do, people are going to be upset because it's not a good feeling to be left out, no matter which way it's spun. I mean, there is a big difference between handling it well and handling it poorly, but at the end of the day, there's no world where everyone will be happy, and I think it's wrong to villainize people who are given a tough job. I think it'll probably be worse today in the re-release. It's no secret that the classic community is completely obsessed with min-maxing, parsing, the best meta, the optimal spec, gearing, raid composition. The truth is, when players find little to no challenge from the encounters, they instead find it in leaderboards and parsing, which led to the dreaded world buff meta that anyone who's played Classic Vanilla is all too familiar with. Don't you just love, collectively as a raid, spending more time than you could ever save by mind-controlling yourself in an out-of-bounds spot for a haste buff and the recreation of a 15-year-old video game? And what's more is, we're going from the toilet on Taco Bell night meta, brown and yellow, to purple, green, and blue. The most populated classes from the previous installment are the least desired, and many people today, completely coincidentally, are finding just how much they actually love and appreciate the inner facets and in-depth gameplay of Warlock and Hunter. And you know, I poke fun here, but really, can you blame them? People want a raid spot. But time, as it always does, will move on. Some guilds will die, some will live on. My guild did survive the transition, I'm happy to say, and we went on to create some fun and memorable moments, many of which for me were in heroic dungeons. Well, I don't know actually. Just because something is memorable doesn't really make it awesome, I suppose. There was good and bad. I had my own clique of friends back in the day, the unwanted B-team rejects if you will, and if you remember from the previous episode, I was part of a guild that got absorbed by my big raiding guild. So naturally, one of my favorite activities was smaller 5-man content, and Blizzard's evolution of dungeons in the Burning Crusade, Heroics, were right up my alley, and I came to know them like the back of my hand. They were extremely difficult back then early on. Not as much today, of course, but I am glad to see that it has taken people by surprise in this initial launch phase. People are getting farmed in these Heroics, and are finding out that the trash mobs are in the mirror, and are learning the value of crowd control. I'm sure there are good players out there who can just AoE everything down, but it seems like the average player is being challenged quite a bit. So you can just imagine that back then, before the game was solved, how brutal these places were. Like, do you think there are enough orcs here, Blizzard? Oh, 7 of them, huh? Very cool. I remember hearing my first ever re in a heroic dungeon. The slave pens. We were wiping for hours. Kill a trash pack, wipe on the next one. Kill a trash pack, wipe on the next one. The day turned into the night, but we kept going because we knew that there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in the form of pixels. No skips, no guides, just a desperation for gear and UIs that look like this. Somehow, some way, we made it to the final boss, Quagmire. The corpse run at this point firmly etched into our brains. Rage bars full in real life.
I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. That ability is...
Getting ready for attempt number whatever. He sprays all over our faces. We die. We run back. He sprays all over our faces. We die. And we run back. The tank we had at the time was a particularly ornery fellow, and he let loose this strange, animal-like guttural yelp that would later be popularized as a re. It's hard to explain, so much so that I'm actually just going to try and recreate it for you here, so feel free to take this out of context. It was beautiful. A piercing howl that the boss was immune to. My brother happened to be in the room at the time and remarked, "That guy sounded mad." Yeah, I would say so. You have to be pretty angry to fail in forming a coherent word. You've evolved beyond common nomenclature, such as fuck or goddammit, and regressed back to your ancestral form to a time where we had emotions, but no words to express them. We of course did not end up killing the boss that night, and I left with a greater appreciation and respect for heroic mode dungeons, and they would become one of my favorite activities in the game from that point forward. It's probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed Mythic Plus so much in Current, because there's nothing better than cracking a few beers and grouping up with the boys. Hell yeah, brother.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.